Hey, what's going on, everybody? On today's show, we're actually switching it up and going off of what our initial topic was going to be so that we can talk about agent mode. So, what is agent mode? Well, we don't actually know. We're just going to talk about what we think we know. OpenAI has said they're going to have a live announcement later today, and there has been Twitter abuzz and X abuzz about what this agent mode is. But there's a lot of people doing it along with some screenshots. Hey, we know the screenshots can get doctored as well as anybody, but we think what we're really talking about is like deep research plus operator, but it might go deeper than that. But then the bigger question for today also is like, well, is this OpenAI sort of racing to catch up? Do they feel like they need to put something out? Is this the right step for them, as they have openly said that they're going to compete against like a Microsoft 365 or Google Office Space or Workspace? So there's a lot to discuss here, more than just like what is agent mode, because we'll find out later today if that's exactly what they announced. But I think it's a bigger conversation about what would agent mode actually do for us? Like, what would be the value to the everyday user in ChatGPT? With something that can maybe connect to my Google Drive. So lots to discuss here. Some of this will just be hypotheticals because, I mean, honestly, we don't know either, but we can talk about what a tool like that would do and why this seems like it might be in the right direct path for something that OpenAI would want to announce. So all that to come today is July 17th, 2025. This is the Daily AI Show. I'm joined by Beth, Jinmi, Andy, and I'm Brian. Don't forget, you can continue the conversation after the show by going to the Daily AI Show community.com, and you can join our Slack. That link was broken. It was brought to my attention. Then I gave it the wrong link. That was brought to my attention, and now we have the right link in there. So it should all work. Thank you for those who are calling it out and reaching out to me through DMs and stuff like that on LinkedIn. I apologize for that. By the way, we were going to be talking about Google's agent development kit today. That was the initial topic. We'll bump that to next week. It's not going anywhere. There's a lot to discuss there as well, and we don't want to not do that. So if that's what you're expecting for the conversation today, just know it is going to happen. But we felt with the timeliness of agent mode, this was a better topic for today. So that's the fun of having a live show, right? We can pivot when necessary as AI needs. So let's kind of talk about what's out there so far. And at least for me, and I know Andy, you've got some stuff as well. The big one for me, if I can find it, of course I can't now, was I think it's testing catalog. And that's the one that I saw a lot of other people referencing, which can be a little tricky when everybody's referencing the same single tweet on X, right? And you go like, well, that's not really validating sources, but here's what it says. Breaking. OpenAI is planning to announce, quote, agent mode. Agent mode will likely be a mix of operator and deep research, which can use the browser and connectors at once, quote, find, analyze, and synthesize your drive files and create comprehensive reports. And so they're actually pulling that off of a screenshot that is in the connector of ChatGPT. Like when you're connecting to Google Drive, there's a chat, but underneath that, it says deep research and agent mode, find, analyze, and synthesize your drive files to create comprehensive reports. And it's saying that you can turn that on. So it's actually showing it as a functionality in this screenshot. And then it's really up to us, right, to decide whether we think that's legit or maybe it's a swerve. You just never know with these things. But let me open it up to you guys. Andy, let me throw it to you first, because you said you actually had some cool stuff that came out of like your research for Perplexity that you were saying maybe this is different. Cause I was like, is this essentially Manus or is this different? And you were saying, no, I think this is maybe something fundamentally different that they're suggesting.
Yeah. So, yes, it's likely to be a combination of browser operations, but the original browser operator from OpenAI, which was called Operator, was really at the pixel level, and it wasn't. And so, why that's important to understand is that the new one is likely to be a document object model interface with any website. And there is this thing called the DOM, document object model, that can be called by a browser, but isn't typically by when you're using a browser and using a mouse to scroll around. So here, I'll give you just a little idea. One of the reasons that Operator was not very effective was every time your screen does a layout shift, you know how you're scrolling down the page and suddenly it kind of reforms itself in order
Mhm.
to, well, that just blows away the uh, the language model's ability to kind of review what's going on the screen and try to understand with precision which pixels it needs to understand as an action button, for example. Whereas by contrast, the document object model says, this is the button that once clicked does this. Okay. So that creates a whole new method, a much more efficient and more accurate and precise method of interacting with web pages. And let's talk about that in the context of agents. So when deep research is done, that's not going out there and wanting to act on any pages. Uh, if you add document object model actions, you can actually dive deeper and follow links on those pages. So instead of having to bring a lot of pages back and analyze them, you can have like a human might, have research done where the agent goes out, uses the document object model to understand what this link is, call that link up and precisely execute it without having to manage a sort of a primitive level and pixel coordination. Um, and that opens up a lot of possibilities that way. But in the larger context of agents, what's really changing is all of the agents to date, and they'll all adopt this approach later, but all of the agents to date have used connectors or MCP type protocols to create an integration with a web page or a service out there on the web that can be called by the agent. But what that doesn't enable is kind of free roaming navigation of the web that also allows the agent to act out there free roaming on the web. And this new thing that this agent mode that OpenAI is likely to announce today uh, is probably that. It's going to be this new document object model approach, and it'll be the first that is using that.
Hey, Andy, where did you get the documentation for that? Like, I'd like to
It
read that.
this is just perplexity research, and,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it used what it said was, um, OpenAI is the only one that uses DOM rather than low-level mouse controls from available documentation from these respective companies. I asked it to compare, Anthropic's approach, Google's Project Mariner, for example, and there's also Anthropic's computer use thing, and then Perplexity Labs, GenSpark, and Skywork. And here's what it says about the primary way that each of these takes action. It says OpenAI's original operator used a vision-based model to move a virtual mouse, scroll, and type inside a remote browser window, and it relied on pixel coordinates to do that, could not address elements on the page as a selection, then that's the DOM approach, right? So it didn't have that. The new one will likely have that. Project Mariner streams screenshots to Gemini, and the agent returns cursor moves and key presses. Okay. And so the public docs mention only visible pointer actions behind Project Mariner. So it sounds like it was not at all like the DOM approach that we're expecting. And then Anthropic's computer use was a sequence of move the mouse and click type commands. And there's no current evidence of DOM access in the API for computer use. And then Perplexity, GenSpark, and Skywork, other kinds of agents that have sort of multi-step reasoning plus planning and execution. Those are mostly API integrations with little direct browser manipulation. But as I mentioned, all of these companies will eventually allow their agents to do direct browser action.
Andy,
The
can you just follow up on there in your Perplexity thread? I'm curious of whether it's predicted that Perplexity's new browser will use DOM or not. Because you're saying Perplexity as in like me signing into Perplexity, but they have it's a closed list right now, but people do have access to Perplexity's new, what is it called? It's not Cosmos. What is it called?
Comet, and
Comet.
I do have access, but I have not, installed it yet.
Okay, that's awesome. Actually, that's really good to know. So, news for a future show as Beth demos Comet to us, which would be awesome.
Come back tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, be about it show. Um,
Here's the short answer on that.
okay.
From Perplexity, so
Yeah, well,
it could be that it's just a model actually that's working behind the screen of Perplexity, but the short answer is no. Comet's automation layer still drives the page through high-level mouse keyboard commands rather than issuing direct DOM selector calls. Perplexity engineers say it relies on a vision to action policy that predicts where to click or type from screenshot frames and accessibility labels, similar to Google's early Chrome agents, and does not expose query selector style element access to the language model.
So one thing I wanted to point out too, because our event was on the Y Combinator podcast, and so there was a show, I can't remember what it was, talking about there's a reason why certain companies wanted to go create their own browser in terms of agency because of the more flexibility they have to what people want to control and how they want to control it. So hence have heard the news about obviously OpenAI doing their own browser, Comet's browser, Arc browsers, Dia's browser, which I have Dia's browser, I've tried Dia's browser, I've tried GenSpark's browser, I've tried Manus's browser, I've tried like the whole bunch of browsers. There's two things that I still wanted to do that hasn't been done, more so a client work. So we can get that wrapped up. But it's interesting that like when you look at from an agent perspective, like a GenSpark, to do certain things versus the GenSpark browser to do additional things, there's just some things that the browser can do from something simple as open a new tab to what's more interesting is to do what I was trying to do, which I think we showed with the operator in terms of logging into my Office 365, accomplishing specific tasks, which I found some browsers can do, some browsers can't. The number one thing though the test that I actually wanted it to do, there's certain websites based on how it's built, the interaction with that website only right now, only a human would be able to discern one from the other, right? It's like the pagination, the click. So I'll give you the example is there's a company that wants to scrape job descriptions from different websites, but different websites display jobs in much different ways, whether it's a PeopleSoft software, whether it's straight HTML on the page, what like just different ways to do it. Whenever I've asked any of these browsers, scrapers, or agents to do it, it cannot accomplish that specific task in the way that we want it to accomplish, just because it's always running into a different issue because it can't discern. It's just you're trying to do the exact same thing. So my hope is whatever happens today, potentially it could do that because now it's connected allegedly to connectors and so on that not only can it discern, but it can also gather and report. So that would be it's interesting that a lot of companies are moving that browser direction. And then will this be part of the browser that OpenAI does as well? Like this plus the browser plus whatever else they do.
yeah, and I think my biggest concern too, Carl, is uh, speed. Because to me, I'll give you a perfect example. I have my ChatGPT connected to a bunch of different sources that are now available. It used to just be like Slack, but now it's like HubSpot. And okay, so Scaled has HubSpot. So we use it for more on the marketing side than a CRM for us because we also have Salesforce. But so I connected to HubSpot. If I want to ask something like, "Hey, ChatGPT, Remind me when the last time we sent out our marketing email for the AI Power Seller, which typically goes out every Monday, right? That it did it, but it thought deeply for 7 minutes to provide that answer. Now, in that case, I think we all agree it would be about 10 seconds for me to click to that tab in my browser, look, and come back. So maybe we agree that that is not a great use case of maybe what this agent mode would be. So then I start to think about, well, what is the use case? Because latency can't be part of the factor. It can't be something that you need instantaneously. It's more like a deep research, kind of like what you're saying, Carl. Like, go out on my behalf, do these things, and it's not really that concerning with if it takes you 30 minutes to do. It's more about I don't have to do them, and when it is done in 30 minutes, it's correct. So it's saying in this testing catalog blog that I'm reading that is saying, for example, it could perhaps direct ChatGPT to find, analyze, and synthesize content from Google Drive files and other connected data sources, such as HubSpot and stuff, and assemble comprehensive reports in a single step. Now, I don't really hear where operator is in that side of that example, but that's not to say it wouldn't be. But I see the value of me being able to say, hey, deep research is agent mode. I'm connected to all these sources. And so I know that I have, my last Google 10 conversations with trainings and stuff like that I was doing this week I use Google Meet more than I use Zoom now because I just like it better. And so I have all those transcripts and they're in Google Drive and they're labeled to the date and all that kind of stuff. Go look at that. Then look at this upcoming SOW I have coming up. Show me where there's comparisons based on the SOW and just do a high level overview for me and come back to me as somebody who's going to have to run those future trainings. How close are we to this being same? Like I just have to replace the company, or is this something fundamentally different that this client's asking for? And now I have to create net new trainings. In that scenario, I'm not that concerned whether it takes time for it to run. What's concerning in that case is, was it accurate when it was done? Or when I came back 30 minutes later to look at that tab in ChatGPT, did it fail? Right? So I think there's this like, what do we want here? Because if it's not going to be speed, that's not really what this is. So if it's like, there's going to be a lot of, I think, use cases, both with operator and you're clearly more well-versed in this than I am, but where it's not meant to be as fast as a human necessarily that can click around websites, because there's a bunch of websites, not only like Reddit's blowing up and saying, do you know how many websites have blocked operator? Never mind the fact that it can't do it. It can't access it. It's been blocked from the creator side. And they're like, what's going to change with agent mode? And I'm like, again, this is about, to me, deep research with connections, if that's what they ultimately mean. And if I can set that on a task or a cron job or something like that, I start to see the value of this and I go, this is something I think I would use, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
So
Beth,
that's
any-
actions. So setting it as a cron job is actions or Perplexity's labs,
It is.
or you can do a bunch of things with Claude Code, including setting something like that up. Um, I am I am curious who the like who the user is. Is the user the super knowledgeable person who is who just wants sort of not monkey fingers, robot fingers, right? Like the who just wants the sequence of tasks and the analysis done and handed to them as a package? Or is the user, are you like setting something up, Brian, and then your users don't need to know anything, they just need to know the trigger?
Mhm. Yeah.
You like, I'm still curious about what, who is doing this. I mean, we also know, Andy and Carl, you use these tools, you use them for you, right? So I would say you're a super knowledgeable user. Are you also setting these up for people who don't understand what's under the hood, but but understand what they're getting? And you're the people who understand what's under the hood?
You know, most of the people I work with or we work with, and it's not like it's funny, but it's like that's what the state of is. They don't even know they have reasoning model in their model. So
Right.
that's the yes, I show them this as part of like, hey, get the excitement, get the FOMO going. but there is no way I would ever deploy operator to any client in any form. Maybe today it could. I'm starting to deploy GenSpark because it's actually like the slides are quite amazing. I really love the slide aspect, but like even think about it, even Comet, even Dia, they're like it's there. I feel it's not there for you to like deploy on a grand scale. It's for you to test so they get the feedback and they improve on it because they need, I think, outside of the testing group that they have, they need to put it out in the wild, see what people do with it.
Mhm.
Because if we look at agent mode, the use cases that I was just listening to, I have a feeling we haven't even scratched what is the native AI use cases will eventually do with this. We're just trying to use it in the tasks that we do on a daily basis based on every day that we've done. But like, there's probably new ways to actually leverage this that we haven't even thought of. And maybe because it's the tech hasn't reached it, or we just haven't thought of it, and there's somebody who will like to connect all these dots. I, but I don't think a lot of this is just necessarily for, hey, yeah, it's now supposed to replace your browser. Like, no, most people won't, but it's just I feel like it's them for like, hey, we need to gather some real user feedback, and then version 2 is probably gonna be better.
In the browser, I think the general user wants something like you would find inside an Excel spreadsheet where after 2 or 3, I don't know when this started, maybe a decade ago, after 2 or 3 cells, it starts to guess at what you might want to pre-populate the rest of the cells with. It's basically looked at your last 3 actions and go, "Do you just want me to do this for the rest of them? Because I could save you time," right? And that's an actually, like, really cool, not super whiz bang, but just, like, kind of a cool function that saves people microseconds here or there that add up. And so I think of like when I think of about a browser with agent, I'm thinking that anything inside or outside of work, if I'm doing a task and the age and the browser is tracking me, right? As it does, and it's watching what I do, and I do that 2 or 3 times, I want something to show up on the side of my screen that says, "Hey, Brian, do you just want me to go ahead and do this for the next several types of companies? This is one way I could do it. This is another way I could do it. And if just tell me where you want me to put that information for later." And then I'm like, "Oh, you know what? That is actually kind of what I was just doing in a repeatable process. Thank you, browser, for understanding what I was trying to do and picking it up from here and saying, hey, we've seen you go through this process twice now. We got it. Is this what you're trying to do?" And I go, "Yeah, that is kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to lead gen or prospect in this area of this particular city with this zip code, with these parameters or whatever." And it's like, got it. And then it just gives me a quick bubble on the side that says, are these the parameters? This is what we're trying to do. Is this the approved workflow? And then I go, yeah, do that. And it says, great, I'll put those as potential leads in your CRM or wherever the hell it's going to go, right? For you to review later. Like that to me sounds like the agent browser of my future that I want to see. I don't know. That's the way I see it, but I don't really hear that kind of future. That's not what I hear. It's more of this like go through the websites and click and stuff and it breaks because it doesn't understand the next website and then it gets blocked by the builders and all the things. So I don't know. I like this idea though, by the way, of grabbing this stuff from Google Drive and then being able to work with a whole bunch of stuff in Google Drive. It is just painfully slow. And if you do not know the name of the document, God help you. It like ChatGPT is like, I don't know what you're looking for because it is doing some sort of basic scrape of the title. So unless your naming conventions are spot on, I think people are going to fail at this because it's not going to be named intuitively in the way that ChatGPT needs it to be named to go scrape it, to go find it, to go do the thing. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here, but I'm cautious to say that agent mode sounds cool to me, but what it also sounds like is something that's going to be very hard to deploy unless it's very, very smart.
Well, I hope what we're really seeing out of this is the first steps to kind of replace websites. Uh,
Hey, Jimmy, do you mind just bringing your volume up just a little bit?
okay. Well, like I was saying, what I'm hoping that we get out of this really is it's the first steps to replacing websites or our need for them. The concept of the DOM is interesting because it's a matter of being able to grab the right information, right? And if there's this agent mode is supposed to interlink or do the deep research on your own documents, then essentially it's a lot of information gathering and then providing analysis on that. Um, and what I'm seeing, or what I'm hoping to see from their announcement later today, is that this agent mode is going to seek out the specific things that you want, whether that be your own resources or go to various websites. And I have to do a little more research into the DOM because this is the first I'm hearing of it, but it sounds like this this could indicate a path to developing, like if you are developing a site for whatever your brand information, your database, wherever you're storing that information for the public, is um, you'll be creating that backend structure. Right. And if agent mode is the popular method of doing it, and you don't have to go click through, various links on the website and navigate that way, then uh, this could be the way that it gathers what you're presenting as, oh, here's your answer. Here is the thing that you're looking for. And this is brought to you by so and so, or find more by going to these other channels, or, that whatever way to, you know, make it a lead or make it worth it to have that information available out there. Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry, Jimmy, what I think you're pointing out for me is that this is potentially just another layer of obfuscation. Obfuscation? Andy, what am I trying to say? Um,
Obfuscation is right.
Thank you. Um, where we've talked before, when you do your deep research, are you actually going and looking at all 65 of those sources? Right? Most of us are not. Certainly none of our users are. Then the next level of that is analyzing that based on what it researched. Now, are we getting to another piece of not of just like less transparency, so we're more at risk of hallucination? Because now we're more at risk for, you've told me what it was, right? You went out and found it. You've told me what that was. You've now compared it to other things and done some sort of analysis reasoning based on all of that. And now you're giving me the final product. And all I know about it is like the labels that you gave me. And like, I was thinking about it, right? I found these. I've done thinking about it. These are my thinking paths, and now I'm giving you this, but there's no vet of the actual source that source of the information that we're being given.
Right, and I can see that that could be a total, an alignment issue. Now, what's the difference from the search, right? The agent bringing you back the source saying this is MLA sourcing, whatever you want to do, scientific citation, and then leading you back to where it's human readable and being able to draw that information from a pre-created document. I'm I I think I think the process here is more about the trust building, or maybe it's training people to trust the outputs more. I mean, we all had to be trained how to use a smartphone when smartphones first came out. So I along the same process. Dangerous? Oh, absolutely. But it does follow the methodology that already exists to just identify it. Now, I think the big alignment issue here is how do we create a credible source? What goes into creating the credible source so that we can trust it? And it's usually time, right? It's usually time, and it's usually other sources saying, "Oh, hey, this is good. We trust this source. We trust this source." That's one of the reasons why AP and Reuters is trusted as a news source, because it's global. Everybody shares that information. They can verify it or confirm it through other sources or other channels that they have. So I think the transparency needs to be on that level. How do you vet? and that'll help us build the trust, that level of trust, when we know how credibility is built and then priority and things are chosen for sources of information when it brings something back.
Don't forget that also applies inside your own like Google Drive, right? That I don't want it to go grab listen, nobody's getting a what am I trying to say? A tour of Scaled's Google Drive. Scary in there. It should only come out at Halloween. I imagine there's a lot of companies that feel the same way. In fact, I know there are because I used to work in data analytics, and I would be floored until I wasn't anymore. Until it became so common of very, very large corporations that just didn't have good data management skills. So I mean, just it was a cluster, you know what? And I was always shocked by that because you're just like, wow, you think that big company has their S together, and they don't. And they're like, help us. There's 13, duplicates of this file. And we never told our employees not to download it and then just save it on their desktop. So they're using the version of 3 times ago and there's no version control. We know all these things, right? That is typically, I'm not going to say every company, obviously. Some people have their stuff together, but mostly it's a bit of a mess because we create files so fast and there's temporary files and all these kind of things. So when you're talking about like having AI be able to source the best cited sources, I also think, yeah, you also have to get that right through the connector if you're going to be looking at Google Drive, because it would be very easy for it to have high confidence and pull the wrong file. Now, we can look at that and say, like, well, that's a Google Drive problem. That's not ChatGPT's problem. Your stuff is a mess. Where would who could find anything in there? And you go, well, this is my process and this is what I do and this is how I find it right. And I sort by date and time and people and yada, 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 right? But I think that's part of it too. And not to bring this all back, but I usually do bring this back to data management. And what do I always say? You can't build a solid house on a faulty foundation. And guess what? Guess what? If agent mode truly is that tool that's going to be able to do that, guess what it won't be able to do for you? Get any sort of really actionable insights out of your data because it's dirty, because it's messy, because it's got duplicates in it, because you never had a naming convention, because you never had version control. It just wasn't, you didn't have data governance, period. And now all these companies are going to be scrambling to go, oh my God, this AI can do all these things for us, but it can't for us because our house is built on a faulty foundation. And now what do we do? And it goes back to that data cleansing and management, things like that.
Which you can write. You can ask AI to write programs that will help you identify, like summarize files, rename things so that they make sense. But the idea I'm curious about in that process is what are the consequences of doing what you're talking about, Brian, where you're turning something loose on unclean data. So are we often when you see something repeated multiple times, it has the systems take that as reinforcement or vetting of that data, right? So it's been said 5 different times. But if those 5 different times are a different version, doesn't say that in the naming convention, it's just a different version, a different take on that same data. The
Mhm.
data itself has not been vetted 5 times. It's just been written about 5 times, but now the
Right.
system is saying, no, it's repeated, clearly. Like, those kinds of things are, I think, things that, um, that only a small subset of data nerds and, AI nerds like, you and me, Brian, may grok, and I'm not sure that other people will understand it, but I do think the decision makers really need to know what this is, and I,
Mhm.
can just imagine some of those conversations where you're like, "Yep, you're close, but I really need you to hear me here because what you think happened is not what happened,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which
And you
is
look, and Greg is saying to that point, kind of what you just said, Beth, is like, well, he says everything Brian just said about data AI will do that for you. Look, and then he said something I definitely disagree with, which is I keep saying it, your data doesn't matter. Yes, it does. That's my response to that, Craig. But I put it up there on the comments so other people could see it. What I would say to the first part about that is, yeah, you're right, Beth and Greg. I agree with you. In time, I'm not suggesting there's a tool. At least I'm not aware of this tool. In time, I think AI will be able to go rip through the metadata, the versions of a Google Doc, right? Who on my team opened it up last and where is their ranking priority? Because if Pepper on my team opened that document last and made a revision, that should should in a lot of cases in our Google Docs rank higher than me or somebody else down the line because Pepper in our particular organization holds a certain title. And if she's made an update to that doc, that's probably the right one. And so you can imagine AI that has a full 360 understanding of not just the titles of the documents. I get that, you're right, and duplicate names and things that are sort of low-hanging fruit, but has a full 360 in-depth understanding of your business and how it runs and who has what titles. And then it can go, "Hey, Beth, I went and did the thing you asked me to. Just checking based on what I saw, this would be the version you'd want to use of your SOW template because even though it doesn't have the right naming convention, I can see that Pepper was the last one to edit it. And there was also an email in the Gmail where she distributed 60 days ago saying, "Hey guys, this is the template to use and I put it in this file for you." Even if there's 3 other documents named SOW template, use this one. Right? No, really this one. No, really, this is the old one. Use this one, right? Like people do with their naming convention. So I agree with you guys. Like there is a future AI that handles this, but man, do you have to make sure it understands through all the layers and it can weave through that and it can cross-reference and analyze and do analysis. And it has to do it at a higher level than I'm not claiming humans can do this. This is very difficult. A simple task like that soaks up so much time. And hopefully, yes, I agree with you all in the near future. This will be a non-issue. And then I think agent mode becomes amazing. If that's what it is, truly is.
So does anyone know? Because I don't. When you connect your Google Drive files, does it have access to the versioning history, and does it understand versioning and take into account?
Not to my knowledge.
I mean,
It is
even
very
outside of
instructive.
even outside of like the name that made this change is more informed, and therefore you should pay attention to it. I don't even know that it's like understands that what you're seeing has a whole history beneath it.
I think, the primary, action that it does when it's looking at your Google Drive is to retrieve semantically relevant files. Uh, I do believe that if you gave it instructions saying, "Find me the most recent, dated version that has this kind of information in it," the LLM will pay attention to those things, but I don't believe that it would just automatically do this ingestion of all the information and try to do as Brian's saying, eventually it will uh, do a ranked validation of the recency and a completion or completeness, or connect it to other sources for validation, like Gmail, for example. It's not going to do that unless you give it explicit instructions to do that right now. But I think if you had Claude with connection to Gmail and to Drive, and you said, "Look, there was some document that was being collaboratively developed, and we talked about it in Gmail, and find me the latest version of that." I think it can do that.
Okay, but that's using last modified date time, I would assume. So if I've gone in Brian's organization and I put on top of all of the ones I don't want them to use, not this one, that's now the most recent,
Well,
right?
but
Yeah.
but yeah,
God,
and
no one would
so
do that.
if
I've never
Claude
done that in
brings
my
if
life.
if Claude brings it back and it says "not this one" on it as the title, I'd fire Claude, okay? I'm hoping that Claude will be smart.
Fire Claude.
Yeah.
You're out. Look, what we're talking about a lot here, just to bring it back to like, the purpose of agent mode and what, again, we're speculating. We're going off of very limited data that's being repeated. I hope this Dom thing is right. That would be amazing. Because that sounds like a step in the right direction. But the reality is we don't know a lot of this, but that doesn't mean that, like, that's sort of the bigger point of this conversation. We wanted to have it today, yes, because there's supposed to be an announcement. And we think that there's going to be discussion, obviously, about this agent mode, just based on the limited stuff we can see popping up from sources. How verified are they? I'm not quite sure, honestly. It's just, the the internet gets a buzz with these types of things. So we'll have to see. During the 12 days of OpenAI, I do believe there was a few times where people were very sure, felt very sure they were going to say one thing and they said something different on that day. So we don't know. However, even if that's not what's announced today, this is clearly in line with where we can see not just OpenAI, Anthropic as well. By the way, did you guys talk about this on the news? I wasn't here on yesterday. It feels like 3 days ago. Yesterday I wasn't here. Um, about Anthropic's revenue increase year over year. It's insane. I'll have to go look it up while when somebody else is talking or whatever. But like something like 7 billion to 24 billion or whatever. Like Anthropic's kind of like, I'm not saying they're out of debt or they're not debt spending or anything like that, but they are clearly moving in the right direction when it comes to enterprise and their connectors and things like that. Really, really interesting. Also because like Cursor uses Claude and these other tools and they're integrated and using Claude as part of their coding and stuff. Really cool stuff. So anyway, just wasn't sure. But all these other tools are building some sort of agent type thing, and we're more connectors and more connectors and more connectors. And what it makes me wonder, Carl, you can answer this maybe, is there, does ChatGPT, I'm not going to say like an N8N, but does ChatGPT essentially be able to do something with a step-by-step approach, just like Make can right now? I'm not picking on Make. Make is a great program. I've built it many times. Zapier is great as well, but these are like connectors. And if we're now saying that, oh, well, if I was to create a 5-step Make process, step one, I might grab the data from somewhere. Step two, I want to enrich that data somehow one by one. Let's say I have a list of, let's just do a sales one. Let's say I have 20 a 20 deep list of potential leads. And then I want to enrich that data and then I want to go put it somewhere. Well, in Make, that's like I get the data, but that's not AI. I'm just getting the data from somewhere like Zoom Info or Clay or somewhere. And then Apollo, right? And then I'm enriching that one by one because there's going to be a big loop here. And then I'm taking that enriched data. Maybe I'm cleaning it up with a smaller AI model. And then I'm going to move it over here and then I want to know this thing or that thing. And then eventually I'm going to go put it in its home in the CRM or wherever it's going to go, right? Wherever the end is. That's a very basic idea. We can make it more complex with a router in there, or if this, then that type stuff, or if true, then this and false, and some other fancy stuff you can do in Make. But ultimately, it's like start here with the data, do these things. Some of them may actually not be AI, and then do these other things. And today's verbiage, we would call that an agent workflow. As much as I fought against that for a while, it is kind of what they're calling an agent workflow, which is to say an AI agent workflow. Say some parts of that were AI, but not all. So are we saying, like Carl or anybody else, that what we see ChatGPT do, or OpenAI doing, excuse me, with ChatGPT, that's going to make that irrelevant? Because not only do you have the model that can already do the things, the AI things and the deep research and all those things, but it also is now the connector to other things that weren't AI to begin with. So then what do you quite need a Make for if I can just do all this inside of ChatGPT?
So to answer that really quickly, yeah. So what I was showing in the news show yesterday was the ability of Claude with those connectors, with those MCPs to literally go into, wherever, right? So Salesforce, HubSpot, either natively or you have to add the connectors in. Like an example I use is like, hey, go into my analytics, figure out the top highlights, then send me the summaries in Slack and send me a draft email. It does that. It could do that, right? Some of it more janky. This one pretty smooth. If you have, so the only thing left there, I think, would be a schedule. Schedule this. I don't think Claude can necessarily do that. I'm not sure. But like an N8N, you'd have to. I think there's still use cases where you'd probably use like a Zapier Maker N8N, but theoretically, you essentially what I feel like all these labs want you to do is your your Claude or your ChatGPT is your new operating system. So
Yep.
you just go, hey man, I need you to access all these SaaS tech. I need my tech stack and go do it for me.
Hmm.
Like to me, that makes sense because I was like, I don't want to go into analytics. I don't want to go into HubSpot. I don't want to go into Tableau. I don't want to go into all these things because it's just work.
Yeah.
Can my agent do it faster than I can? I'm hoping so. The danger that I see is that these companies like a Salesforce is like, nah, I don't want your agent anywhere near our platform unless you use our agent, which I was like, that's a pretty dick move. Um, but I could see Benioff kind of be like, yeah, I've got, or what I feel like probably will happen is like, okay, I want you to do this task. No, this task is going to cost you $7 because each of these platforms is now charging every single MCP access by cents or by dollars, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I feel that will probably be that's probably a one path of making sure, the agent just doesn't have free access to all these SaaS company tools. Or maybe it becomes free because these SaaS companies are like, there's someone's like, oh, why would you want to limit the data call to any of these? Why don't I just build a platform that allows you to do all this? I'm not sure, but it's a completely different, whole new way of working if you can do this. Exactly what we're starting to see what you can do, right? Because all these connectors, even what I showed yesterday, one of the connectors to Claude is control, like you can open my local files. Go
Mhm.
to this file, open it, access it. It can't really create a new file in there, but it can see it. And then there's another one, it's like control your OS. It's like, oh, close this, open this, right? So it's like
Mhm.
piece by piece by piece. Now, I don't think OpenAI or ChatGPT has that
Right.
level. Like it's not there yet. Or I think maybe it's more of they're preventing it from doing that because if Claude can do it, then OpenAI can do it. So there's a reason why they won't let you do that. So, but eventually, I would imagine all these tools will allow you to do it in one form or fashion. So I think most of those NAN make operations, if those MCPs hold up and actually work, then you don't really need them because you just
Mhm.
have agent can do it yourself, right? Then all those stupid like s- octopus arm, like, oh, you could do this. So don't need to. I have my agent Claude
Right.
can do it for me.
Why do you need one of those big Jarvis, build outs that by the way never worked if they
No.
tried to operationalize them?
Yeah.
They were only good for the video, in single, like 2 or 3 really detailed
Yeah.
use cases to get it to work.
But we
But
know like people will still buy those because they don't even know that the capabilities of a Claude or a ChatGPT or a
yep.
Grok, wherever, has these tools. So I would imagine those those people, the automation agencies would still have maybe a year, 2, 3 years of paying $5,000 a month for automation, whatever. It's usually 5,000. I don't know what it is. It's $5,000 to do this thing.
Yeah, well, that's maybe the last.
Distinction the
Go ahead,
distinction
Jamie.
between what you're describing as the sort of large language model based operating systems that we'll choose, whether it's with Anthropic or OpenAI, for example, and the automation workflow managers, orchestrators, is the whole concept of a trigger. And OpenAI has scheduled events, and so I think that they could get there sooner. I don't know that Anthropic or Claude has scheduled tasks. So OpenAI seems to be putting together all of these things in a way that agent mode may well make it unnecessary to use workflow automation tools like N8N in the future.
I
And then
think
we
we
get wait, go ahead.
no, just to build on, I think we all know deep inside, everybody knows that has that N8N Zapier, like that has a very short life. Like you may need bits and pieces of it, but like it kind of, if you follow the space enough, you're like, these things will overtake all those things because it's too clunky and janky to do those. Right?
I wanted to validate that by saying I was really I was hyped about N8N, and I started working in N8N, and the configuration of each node and the permissions that are required to, provide with it was a lot of work, and I never could find the time to do that, and this is where the weighting equation came to serve me because very shortly, the and, in some cases, simple workflow automation can be accomplished now with OpenAI, for example, using scheduled tasks and asking an LLM to do that sort of thing. But I believe the future that you're describing here, which is I don't have to invest the time that it would take me to become a real solid practitioner. Brian, I want to acknowledge you for the YouTube project, and all of the N8N work that you did in that. You're a master of N8N, but me, I'm waiting for the agents to obviate the need for you to understand all of that detailed thing. The one thing that seems missing yet in most of the capable agents is the trigger, the idea of a trigger, and being able to set up triggers in those agents. I tend to use GenSpark over most of the other options, although I dabble with them, but I haven't seen in GenSpark a way that I can say, okay, on this event that happens on my desktop, or like an incoming email, I want you to kick off this this prompt basically that I'm giving you now. I want you to save that and make it happen. That's coming soon, though.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, if you think about it, we are kind of going down two parallel paths that are taking us in widely divergent directions, but both saying that they're getting us to the same destination, right? So we can do that kind of N8N, which is getting deep into the box and doing a bunch of things with it. And then closing the box, and you can see that, like, okay, that's a thing. It's a node. I can see what it attaches to, and then I can go into the box. But there's a big learning curve there. On the other side, you have the ability to just say to your coder of choice, your flavor that you can code, you can do it for free with Gemini 2.5 Pro. Write me code that does this thing. Excellent. That now that's a box, right? I'm gonna put it there. Now I'm gonna attach this to that code, and I'm gonna do that. It feels like we're getting, um, we're getting less transparent on one side, and the other side is like, "Oh, no, it's okay. I speak code. I'll hold your hand. Tell me what you wanna do." I'll write the code that does it. And the other thing about that, that you've heard me say before, is the beauty of code is it works or it doesn't. It's immediately apparent if it's broken. Whereas sometimes with an N8N node, you don't totally know that it's not actually going to function the way that you want it to function. And you're not sure what the piece is because there isn't the N8N node buddy that's holding your hand the way there is with the code where you're just able to go, why? Right? Like, look at this and say why.
Well, as of right now, as of 6 minutes to 11 a.m. on the East Coast, there is no OpenAI live event scheduled on YouTube that I see. So I'll just refresh and just make sure that is still the case, that nothing has popped up. So I don't even think that the last update they have on their ChatGPT for business updates, and that was from 1 month ago. So I don't see anything. We would normally see a pop up like an upcoming event, and it would say so many hours out. So I don't know if that's an indicator that no, people are wrong, this wasn't coming, but either way, whether there's an announcement today or not, whether it's agent mode or not, hopefully this conversation has helped you, under maybe think bigger about what do we actually want these tools to do for us? Like it's all well and good if they tell us what they can do, but we've seen so many times over and over again, operator, book me tickets to the Lakers game. Great. That happens in my life all the time. Thanks for solving that for me, And it's like sometimes the splashiness of the demo doesn't really live up to the real world needs. And so maybe this is a step in that direction. And if not, if this isn't the right solution today, that's not to say that everything we've discussed today isn't coming. I think all these things are sort of obvious next steps. It's just a matter of like when and where. So, come back and hang out with us. I don't know if we'll have a live React show today because I don't know if there's a live React to do. Beth?
I thought Jumi was saying yes. And there is
Where do you see it if I'm missing it?
live stream in 3 hours. I'm seeing OpenAI's post. ChatGPT holds hands with deep research, holds hands with operator. Live stream in 3 hours. That's the OpenAI Twitter account.
Oh, okay. It's not on YouTube, but maybe it's maybe yeah. So there you go. There's a better answer to it. So Jimmy, are you saying I can't? I think Beth, you said you can't. Is anybody else going to do the live React today? So we can let our viewers know. He says yes, and it'll be
I have to be on the live,
okay.
but it's at 3 hours from now would be 11 Pacific.
2 hours from now. 2 hours from now because the post was an hour ago.
Yeah, it's typically at 1 p.m. Pacific, right? 10 p.m. I'm sorry, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific.
Well, this is going to be on the live from our team.
I think just Jimmy.
Okay, I'll see you then, Jumi.
All right, so come back. There you go. There's your. We figured it out to the live with you guys. There will be a live React if there's an OpenAI. That sounds like there is. Jimmy and Andy will be here to talk about it. Typically, what we do is we bring it up, we watch the announcement live with you, or Jimmy and Andy will, and then they'll give you their immediate reactions off that, which would be great because we just had this conversation. So we'll have all sorts of things to talk about. So come back and hang out with us. Just check for our live streams on YouTube, and you'll be able to join us for that. Outside of that, tomorrow we have a regular scheduled show. We have sort of our Be About It show where we're really showing you either it's our own live demos, things that we are currently working on, things that are actually functioning, not just hype and all that stuff, or we're showing you things where other people have built something with AI that's not hype and it's actually out there in the world working. So I have a few things I'm sure the rest of the crew does as well, and that will be on tomorrow's show. We call it the Be About It show, which we sort of took that name from the original LinkedIn post that I do not remember her name, but there was a lady who called it Be About It, and then she said bye. So that's all the things we have coming on, guys. Do we have a sci-fi AI show tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So tomorrow we also have a sci-fi AI show that will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. As always, fantastic. Okay, so there you go. All sorts of stuff coming up. Live React today, regular show tomorrow, sci-fi AI show tomorrow, conundrum episode will go out on Saturday morning, newsletter will go out on Sunday morning. If you want to get on the newsletter, go to thedailyishow.com. And these are all the different ways over the next 3 days, 4 days that you guys can interact with us. And don't forget, you can always go over to the Slack community, thedailyishowcommunity.com, to join the Slack community if you want to keep this conversation going with everybody else. So there are all the things. We'll wrap it up with that. Andy and Jimmy will be back in a few hours, just 2 short hours, to see what OpenAI has to say. I'm excited. I'll be watching it when I have time. Until tomorrow, guys, have a great day.
Aloha.